Hello everyone, I'm Peter. Welcome to our space for true stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We will select the best comments to send to the original poster op of the real Reddit story. We hope your insights help them overcome their challenges. Thank you for being part of our community. Please sit back and enjoy today's story. I promised my dying friend that I would visit her disabled son regularly, but now my husband wants to move across the country, and I feel so terribly guilty. When I was in college, I took a job caring for a middle-aged disabled man named John, the son of an elderly couple, in the afternoons and some weekends. John couldn't take care of himself and needed constant supervision, but he was an easygoing person. Growing up with two severely disabled siblings, I was comfortable being around John. I didn't have any formal caregiving experience, but Jan and Jerry, John's parents, had retired by the time I met them, so I was rarely left alone with John for extended periods. They shouldered the heavier tasks of his care, but appreciated having me around so they could run errands, take walks, nap, things that offered them some much-needed respite. Taking care of John was essentially a full-time job, and my presence significantly lightened their load. They were incredibly kind people, paying me generously and treating me as if I were part of their family. Over time, I grew very close to Jan, Jerry, and John. I started bringing them meals weekly, and we would eat together. It became much more than just a paid job. While they continued to compensate me fairly, the bond we shared grew beyond financial exchange. We became family. It was during these shared meals and afternoons that I came to know the true depth of Jan and Jerry's love for their son, and the lengths they went to ensure his well-being. This arrangement continued for about 4 years. After graduating from college, I stopped working for them officially, but remained a frequent presence in their lives. Around this time, Jerry passed away, leaving Jan to carry the heavy burden of John's care alone. Despite the loss, our bond remained strong, and I continued to assist Jan part-time while balancing a full-time job. John was Jan and Jerry's only child. All of their siblings had either passed away or lived far away, making it difficult for Jan to find the kind of support she needed. Though they had a community of friends through their church, the care John required was more than they could manage. About a year after Jerry's death, Jan was diagnosed with cancer. Despite her diagnosis, she continued to care for John full-time while undergoing treatment. I was constantly amazed by her strength and resilience. Even as her health worsened, she held on to the responsibility of John's care until she could no longer physically manage it. Eventually, Jan made the heart-wrenching decision to place John in a full-time assisted living facility. It was one of the most painful choices she had to make, but her body was failing, and there was no other option. During one of my last visits with her, Jan confided her deepest fear, that after her death, John would have no visitors and would become lonely and depressed. She asked me if I would continue to visit him regularly after she was gone. It was her only dying wish. I looked into her eyes, seeing the weight of her love for her son, and I promised her that I would. Jan passed away more than 3 years ago, and I've kept that promise ever since. I visit John's care facility, which is over an hour away, at least twice a week. I know that keeping this commitment is important, not just for Jan's memory, but for John's emotional well-being. He has no other regular visitors. Occasionally, once every 6 months or so, a friend from church might stop by, but otherwise, I am the only one who comes to see him. John is surrounded by caregivers, but they're responsible for dozens of other patients. The facility he lives in is understaffed, and many of the other residents are less friendly and kind-hearted than John. He struggles to make friends, and without someone like me regularly visiting, I fear he would lose the personal connection that makes him feel like more than just another patient in a system. But now my husband has been offered a once-in-a-lifetime job opportunity that would require us to move across the country. We're talking thousands of miles away. I'm overjoyed for him. It's the kind of chance that doesn't come along often, but at the same time, I feel like I'm drowning in guilt. If it weren't for John, I'd be excited about the move. but I can't escape this gnawing feeling that I'm abandoning him. Without me, he'll be alone. Yes, the staff takes care of him, but they don't know him like I do. They don't have the same emotional connection. John will be left without visitors, and I'm scared that he'll slip into depression and isolation. I've been agonizing over this decision. I know that refusing to move with my husband could jeopardize our marriage, but I also can't ignore the promise I made to Jan. Is there any way I can transfer John to a facility in our new city? Are there legal avenues I can explore? Unfortunately, money is extremely tight. I can't afford to hire a lawyer, nor can I take on any personal financial responsibility for John. But I feel trapped. I don't know what to do. I can't bring myself to break the promise I made to my dying friend, but at the same time, I can't ignore the future my husband and I have ahead of us. How do I choose between honoring a vow to someone who is no longer here and supporting the man I've committed my life to? TLDR, I promised my dying friend that I would continue visiting her disabled son in his care facility after she passed away. I am his only visitor. Now, my husband has received an incredible job offer across the country, and I can't bear the thought of breaking my promise. I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support after sharing my story. I didn't expect such a huge response. Many of you helped me see that it would be unreasonable to put my life on hold entirely for John, no matter how much I care about him. The advice and suggestions you all offered were invaluable. Several of you suggested that I could maintain my connection with John by setting up regular video calls, something I hadn't thought of before. I decided to purchase a tablet for John so we could schedule bi-weekly video calls. This way, even if I couldn't physically be there, I could still stay in touch and let him know he's not forgotten. We started practicing video calls before I left. It was harder than I thought. John didn't seem to connect with me through the screen. He got distracted easily and seemed agitated. It was heartbreaking to see how frustrated he became when he couldn't understand that it was me on the other side of that small screen. I began to doubt whether this would work, and on my last visit before the move, my heart ached as I hugged him tightly and kissed his cheek. John wasn't usually one for physical affection, but he accepted my embrace that day, which made it all the more bittersweet. I gave him a care package filled with his favorite candies and treats, and he smiled. But as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't doing enough, that I was somehow failing him. For the next few months, we stuck to our bi-weekly video calls, but about 2 months ago I got a phone call from the care facility. John had passed away. He had choked on a plastic game piece. The news shattered me. I had known John for so long, and he was such a special part of my life. To know he was truly gone felt surreal. Writing about it now still feels like a shock, like I'm in some strange dream where everything feels wrong. I find comfort in the fact that Jan and Jerry believed in heaven, and I like to imagine that they're all together now, happy and at peace. But I miss all three of them so much. John, with his quiet sweetness, Jan with her unshakable love for her son, and Jerry, who had a warmth that made you feel like you were home whenever you were with him. I'm grateful to this community, and to my licensed therapist, who's been helping me through this. For all the support you've given me. I know this is a sad update, but I felt it was only right to thank everyone who commented on my original post. You all helped me in ways I can't fully express. TLDR, John has passed away. Hello everyone, I'm Peter. Welcome to our space for true stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We will select the best comments to send to the original poster of the real Reddit story. We hope your insights help them overcome their challenges. Thank you for being part of our community. Please sit back and enjoy today's story. At 17 years old, I have celiac disease, but my new group of friends think I have an eating disorder and are planning an intervention. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom had me most of the year, and my dad would get me for the summers. I hated going to my dad's house. Part of it was because he was stubborn, rude, and always had to have his way. But also, every time I went to his place, I got sick. Nausea, rashes, aches, cramps, and as I got older, I even started missing my periods. TMI. I went to see a doctor, but he said it was psychological stress related and referred me to a therapist. My dad wouldn't let me go because he thought it was all nonsense. My mom took me a couple of times, but my symptoms subsided, so we couldn't tell if it was helping or not. One thing that really pissed me off was how my dad ate tons of junk food and drank soda instead of water, mocking me without a shred of mercy whenever I tried to eat healthy. I think it reminded him of my mom since she was always health conscious. I snuck carrots into the house, and if he found them, he'd throw them away. At my mom's, I ate veggies and organic chicken. Sometimes a dish made me feel nauseous, but all I had to do was stop eating it, and I'd be fine. I developed the habit of refusing any food offered to me, not knowing if it was safe. I'd just say I was picky. Then, when I was 16, a new girl transferred to my school. I became friends with her, and after a few months, I noticed she avoided all the same foods as me. I casually brought it up, like, "Hey, isn't that weird?" And she nervously told me she had celiac disease and that I should get tested. I did, and sure enough, I had it. Suddenly, everything made sense. I was so excited to finally understand what was going on that I told everyone I knew. I told everyone I thought was my friend. And they didn't react well. At first, they seemed fine, but I noticed all of them were slowly fading out on me. I confronted my best friend, and she told me that they all thought I was faking it for attention. They'd only heard of the gluten-free diet as some stupid fad. I broke down in tears, telling her how horrible I felt every summer at my dad's, and I couldn't believe she didn't trust me. She was horrified. She turned around and became my biggest supporter. She tried talking to the others, but they still thought I was terrible and lying to her, so we decided it was best to cut ties with them. My birthday is in August, so I had 2 more summers with my dad after I found out. He took the news of my diagnosis worse than my former friends. He'd yell that I thought I was better than him, that I was making up medical problems to feel special, and that he wasn't going to tolerate it. I suggested taking him to the doctor, but he said doctors were con artists, and he didn't believe anything they said. It was awful. To the point where he started sabotaging my food and berating me when I got sick. So I'm pretty cautious about telling people I have this disease. Between my personal experiences and hearing people mock gluten-free food on TV and the internet, I decided I wasn't comfortable telling new people. I know it's cowardly, but I'm terrified of what people will think. This is my last summer with my dad, and it's my last summer with my dad. I don't care if he rots in hell for how he's treated me like garbage. I just have to survive the next few weeks. It's not my problem anymore. You could give me advice on leaving my dad's house or calling CPS, but frankly, I've made the decision that it'll be easier just to stay for the next 3 weeks and then leave forever. Please don't focus on that part. Here's where I need help. My best friend and I have a new group of friends. They're great people, really fun. We play tabletop role-playing games every weekend. We've been hanging out since May. There are about 10 or 11 of them, depending on whether or not you count the guy who shows up occasionally for games. Yesterday, my best friend came to me and said that the others had been talking behind my back. They've put together that I keep refusing food, that I'm picky about what I eat, that I've been getting skinnier and seem sick since I live with my dad, and they've concluded that I have an eating disorder. They're planning to hold an intervention for me next weekend. Guys, I don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. I know I should tell them, but I'm so scared they'll reject me. They already have this idea in their heads that something is wrong, and now I'm afraid they'll think I'm just making excuses. And I've been burned before. I've lost so many friends after telling them about my disease. Yes, they were jerks, but it still hurt. How do I do this? How do I explain it so they believe me? I can't handle anyone else calling me a liar. I'll break down. This disease has ruined so many parts of my life, and I just want this part of my life to be separate. Please, Reddit, give me advice. TLDR, I can't eat gluten, which means I'm on a restricted diet, and due to being forced to eat things, I've been getting sick and losing weight. The last friends I told accused me of lying and cut ties, so I didn't tell my new friends. They misunderstood and now think I have an eating disorder. They're planning an intervention next weekend, and I don't know what to say. Update. 6 days later. Hey guys. Thanks for all your help. The intervention happened yesterday, and I thought you'd want to know how it went. It went well. A few hours before the game, a friend of mine, let's call him Zach, texted me asking to come over early. He hosts the games, because he wanted to discuss a game, related terms that most of you wouldn't care about. I figured this was the intervention, so I texted my best friend. I think there was confusion in the last post. This is another friend from our former group who I confided in, who followed me to the new group, let's call her Laura, to ask if she was invited. She wasn't, so I told her to come with me. Before going to his house, I did something bold, inspired by one of the comments in the last post, thank you /Ida Vetacharge. I went and bought some gluten-free Chinese food from a place I always go to. They have this amazing vegetable fried rice that I love. They're super careful about cross-contamination, and I've eaten there for years without getting sick. I brought the food to Zach's place, along with Laura, my notebook, and dice for the game. Zach seemed really surprised to see Laura there. I asked if he had a problem with it, because if we were going to talk about complex gaming issues, she should be involved since her level of expertise. I'm so sorry. I'm really trying not to throw a bunch of gaming jargon at you. He awkwardly said it was fine. Then I said something like, can I eat while we do this? I skipped lunch, and I'm starving. And I took out the Chinese food. He said it was fine but looked a little nervous, like I was freaking him out. I started eating, and he began his pitch. You/Hellphilp Celiac actually, I didn't call you here to talk about game nonsense. Some of us have noticed some things recently that we're concerned about, and they've elected me to talk to you. I said, okay. He listed a bunch of things I'd done that made them worried for me. How they never saw me eat anything. How I always seemed sickly and skinnier. How I always seemed anxious and uncomfortable whenever food was brought up. How I refused everything offered to me. And then he dropped the bomb. You/Hellphilp Celiac, Michael's sister, has anorexia, and she acted just like you. We think you might have an eating disorder. I swallowed my food and tried not to freak out. I don't, I told him. He started talking about how no one thinks they have anorexia, but clearly something was wrong with me, and he rambled a bit, so I cut him off. I do have something wrong. It's not an eating disorder. Can I talk? He reluctantly agreed. I think he was scared I was going to say something like I was too fat and needed to lose weight or whatever. Like, he was really committed to the idea that I had anorexia. I'll try to paraphrase what I said because I'm really proud of myself for it. I know I've been losing weight in an unhealthy way, but not on purpose. I have a disease that prevents me from eating grains like wheat, barley, and rye. When I lose weight, I get sick and my body can't eat. My stomach tears up and I can't digest many things, even things that don't contain those grains. It's not just an allergy. It causes serious long-term damage to me. If I eat a piece of bread, I break out in rashes, I start vomiting, and I can get things that seem unrelated like terrible muscle cramps when I'd refuse food. It's because you're offering me stuff like Doritos and PB&Js. If I ate that, it would make me really sick. I'm refusing it to avoid making my health worse. And the reason my symptoms are flaring up and I'm getting sick and losing weight is because right now I'm living in a family situation where I'm being forced to eat food that my body doesn't tolerate. When I first met you guys, I was living with my mom and she took really good care of me, but right now I'm with my dad and he sabotages my food because he thinks I'm making my disease up and my doctor is a fraud. Zach pulled out his cue cards and flipped through them. He actually had a script for the intervention. I guess that's what I get for hanging out with people who dramatically role-play on tablets. He was silent for a long time. Then he had a few questions. But why did you refuse like Coke? Because Coke is gross, but I didn't want to complain and make you guys buy root beer just for me. Why didn't you tell us this? Aura took this one and explained what happened with our last friend group. Okay, so what can I have in the house that you'd be willing to eat in front of me? I wanted to facepalm at this. I asked if he was serious. He was. I don't know, do you have celery? He shook his head. Yogurt? Nope. An apple? No. Seriously? He nodded. Do you have popcorn, like popcorn? That he did. So I ate some popcorn in front of him, and finally, he seemed to accept what I was saying. He awkwardly changed the subject to the game, and we talked about that until the rest of the group started arriving. When Michael got there, Zach pulled him aside and started talking to him in a way they must have thought was subtle. They kept looking over at me and not exactly lowering their voices. Michael asked if I had been defensive, and Zach shrugged and said not really. I made a point of eating popcorn for the rest of the game. Michael texted me after the game, apologized for assuming I had an eating disorder, and asked what snacks they could bring for me. I actually cried a little. I'd been so worried about being kicked out, but they immediately shifted to helping me. They're good people. So, everything turned out okay. Sorry for the anticlimactic ending. I convinced them I don't have an eating disorder, and it seems like they're accepting me. Thanks for your help. Hello everyone, I'm Peter. Welcome to our space for true stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We will select the best comments to send to the original poster op of the real Reddit story. We hope your insights help them overcome their challenges. Thank you for being part of our community. Please sit back and enjoy today's story. Ayate for calling my coworker work sister after she called me work husband in front of everyone. I, 34M, work in a small office, and we have about 30 people working here. Mary, 35F, is one of my coworkers. We have been working together for 6 years now. We have 6 people in our department, and we frequently travel across the state as our work involves overseeing government projects. We always travel in a group of 2. Although my travel partner changes based on the project, Mary and I are generally put on similar projects and enjoy each other's company. My wife also likes Mary. Overall, we have a very healthy work relationship. On to the incident. Yesterday, we had a happy hour in our office, and we were all drinking after work hours and chatting. It was a group of around 10 people that stayed back. Mary was blabbering about how we both have been traveling together so much in the last year. She was roasting me for my habits while traveling, like always forgetting stuff in my hotel room, being sweaty and stinky when I join her for breakfast in the mornings because I go to the hotel gym. Everyone was laughing, and she was making it sound like how unbearable I was to tag along, all in good fun. I also told some funny and sweet stories about her and agreed with her, saying that I can be difficult to be with sometimes. Mary came to me and hugged me tightly and told me that she loves me and I am her work husband. It was all innocent on the surface, but she might have been a bit drunk and just didn't let go of her tight hug. Also, I hate that phrase, as I do have a wife that I promise to be with forever, and not just in non-working hours. After a few seconds, I started becoming uncomfortable and also saw a few people staring at us. So, to diffuse the situation, I took her hands off my shoulder and told her she was my work sister, and that is why I love to annoy her so much. That seemed to have upset Mary, and she left and went back to her desk, sobbing silently. I tried to apologize to her, but she told me how embarrassing the whole situation was. She said that she just meant work husband in a platonic way, but me calling her work sister made her sound like a creep in front of the whole office. She was also angry that I aggressively removed her hands from my shoulders while hugging. I tried to reason with her that I do not like the work husband phrase, and also people gave dirty looks when she said it. so I was just trying to make sure people did not take her words in the wrong way. We talked for a few minutes afterward and Mary calmed down. She hugged me again and laughed. I felt really guilty afterward because I can see Mary's point. I made her sound like a creep by implying that she meant something inappropriate when she called me her work husband. However, I was a bit uncomfortable in that situation and just did not want people to call us that or assume something wrong. Am I the off for calling Mary my work sister? I am sitting in my office writing this and a bit worried if I embarrassed Mary in front of everyone. Update. I posted this about calling my coworker Mary my work sister after she tried to call me her work husband in front of the entire office. A lot of you are asking for an update, but that sub does not allow me to post updates, so I am writing it here. Thanks everyone for your comments and giving me confidence that I did not do anything wrong or inappropriate. As I was sitting in the office the next day, I knew things would be a bit awkward between Mary and me. Mary ignored me the whole morning. Initially, I was planning to go and apologize to her, but after the post, I decided that I do not need to do that, as I should be the one who was offended. Everyone in the office could see that we were acting weird, and I heard some people gossiping about us. One of the ladies also came to me and asked me if I wanted to talk about Mary and me. Around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I was sitting in my office working. Mary came into my office and closed the door behind her. She was angry at me and started saying that I need to stop being an asshole and stop ignoring her. I told her to sit and talk about what was going on. She told me that she feels humiliated, and everyone had been staring at her the whole morning because of what I did. I also stood my ground and told her that I was okay with her making fun of me, but calling me her work husband and hugging me in front of everyone for a long time made the situation awkward. She told me to get over myself and that I should know exactly what she meant. Mary said that I made a big deal out of what was supposed to be a joke and made it awkward for everyone. She said calling someone work husband is a normal thing and just means that she knows me intimately like a spouse would. She said that because we spend so much time traveling together, she knows all the intimate details of how I behave outside of work. I stopped her and told her that I felt offended by the term work husband because I have a wife, and I do not want people to use that term to describe our relationship. I told her that she would not understand as she is single, but as a married man, I really do not want anyone to describe me as a husband in any capacity. She said that I am again misinterpreting what she was saying. She felt that as we have known each other for more time than I have been married, she knows me more intimately than even my wife. I have no idea why she feels that way. And I also behave like her husband when we travel together. She went on about how we go out to dinners together after work, how I always insist on having breakfast together in the morning to plan our actions of the day, and I walk around in my underwear, referring to my gym shorts, around her in the mornings. She also talked about how we spend hours talking to each other during road trips, and how I am the only man she can trust with any secret in her life. She said that I am the definition of work husband, and I am just in denial. I was a bit angry at this point. I told her that I do all that because I consider her my friend, and she is delusional if she feels she knows me more intimately than my wife. I told her I do not want to hear that term again, and it is extremely disrespectful to my marriage. Only one woman gets to call me her husband, and that is my wife. Moreover, if my actions are giving her such ideas, maybe we need to stop being friends. She became apologetic afterward and told me that she did not mean to disrespect my wife, and it was not her intention. She apologized to me and told me to just let it go. She said that she loves traveling with me, and she does not want anything to change between us. She again said that I am misinterpreting her statement and just want to move on. She came to hug me again, but I just told her it was okay and stepped back. I also talked to my wife about the incident that night. As expected, my wife was angry at Mary and told me that she hates the term work husband. She asked me if Mary has ever flirted with me during our trips or has a crush on me. I truthfully told her that I really have not felt that way, and she may have just said that because she was a bit drunk and is now being stubborn about it. My wife said that she feels a bit uncomfortable about Mary now, and says that it's strike one for Mary and I need to try and put more distance between us while traveling. If she ever repeats the same behavior again, I should report her to HR. I promised my wife that I would try to reduce my interactions with Mary outside of work hours and be more guarded around her. Mini update. Thanks everyone for the comments and explaining the urgency of the situation. I discussed it with my wife and have set up meetings with my manager and HR today. I plan to not file a complaint but document what happened last week and why it made me uncomfortable. I do not have any upcoming travels this week due to holidays, but I have to travel next Tuesday with her to a work site. I will discuss with my manager what my options are. However, I feel a little distance between Mary and me for some time would be the right solution for now. New update. I wrote a while ago regarding my coworker friend, Mary, being upset with me for calling her my work sister when she called me her work husband in front of everyone. I'm sorry to leave everyone hanging, but the next few weeks were busy and the issue was eventually resolved. Thanks to everyone for the comments. They really helped me when I talked to my manager about the situation. However, the last week has been crazy, so I wanted to get some opinions on what I should do next. After my last post, my wife and I were no longer comfortable with Mary's behavior. Although a part of me thought I was overreacting and that it was just part of Mary's personality, I felt the need to protect myself. I requested a meeting with my manager and HR to document my side of the story. I wrote down everything and told them about the incident at the party, as well as Mary coming into my office and the comments she made. I made it clear that while I did not want them to take action against her, I wanted to emphasize that her behavior made me uncomfortable, especially her comments about knowing me better than my wife and remarks about my shorts. My manager had already heard about the incident at the happy hour, as everyone in the office was talking about it. He told me he would try to shake up the travel schedule to minimize our travel together. The issue was that only 4 people in our company generally work on off-site audits, and the other 2 coworkers did not want to split up because they claimed they worked well together. As a result, I continued traveling with Mary for the next couple of weeks, but it was awkward, and I kept my distance. My manager then called Mary and me to his office and informed us that he was planning to train a new auditor, Carolina 26F, and set up a schedule where she would travel with me for 1 week and then with Mary the following week. We were asked to train her. I liked this arrangement because it meant I no longer had to travel with Mary. Carolina turned out to be a great travel buddy, and I made sure not to get too comfortable with her. I always dressed professionally when we went for breakfast, avoided late-night drinks, and maintained healthy boundaries. Things were great until last week. Last Tuesday, I could feel everyone staring at me when I entered the office, and I was immediately called to a meeting with my manager and HR. HR asked if I had anything to report regarding Carolina, and if she had made any advances toward me during our work trips. I told them no, that Carolina had been very professional the entire time. I asked why I was being interrogated, and they told me they couldn't disclose any further details, but that Carolina was being investigated by HR for inappropriate conduct. I left the meeting, and Mary came to my office, asking what had happened. She mentioned that she was also told Carolina would no longer be traveling with us, and that we were asked to travel together again. I told her I had no idea what was going on. I messaged Carolina to see if she was okay and if she needed to talk. She asked if she could come to my office, and I agreed. Carolina explained that someone anonymously sent messages to her boyfriend, posing as someone from the office over the weekend. The message included screenshots of Carolina sending some inappropriate pictures she had taken in her hotel rooms during our travels and flirtatious messages. This person claimed to her boyfriend that Carolina was trying to cheat with him at work, and he was just trying to warn him. Her boyfriend went crazy after seeing the pictures, ghosted her, and then sent the messages to HR as revenge. Carolina was in tears, telling me that she had only taken those pictures for her boyfriend and had no idea how they got leaked or how those messages even existed. Her boyfriend was furious because he also received the exact pictures from Carolina and knew they weren't fake. I consoled Carolina but she's in deep trouble, as our workplace takes such things very seriously, because we work on government contracts, and I'm sure everyone suspects I am the anonymous messenger. I was told that the matter would be investigated, and Mary and I would be working together on the project again. My manager said there was nothing he could do, and also mentioned that they might go through my emails and messages on my company phone as part of the investigation into Carolina. Mary seems very happy about the whole situation and keeps talking about how excited she is to revisit the restaurants and bars we used to frequent during off-site trips. She also keeps referring to Carolina as that pervert. The whole thing is just crazy. My wife, of course, believes that I would never do anything inappropriate with Carolina, and that I wasn't the anonymous messenger. However, her conspiracy theory is that Mary, who was also traveling with Carolina, may have unlocked her phone and accessed the photos. It feels far-fetched, but the fact is, I'm not thrilled about traveling with Mary again. I don't think I have any other recourse to get off this project except leaving the job, which is impossible at this time. I know many of you work in HR, and I would appreciate any advice on what I can do next.